Hello and welcome to another WeAreDevelopers Live. It's Wednesday again. It's lunchtime again. We don't have anything to eat, but I have coffee and water. As much as you know, as it is water and it's coffee. So we're going to talk about some cool stuff today. Dan, how are you doing?
Hello. Yeah, very well. Good as always. Yeah, I mean, we've got a lot in this in this week's session. I'm looking forward to it, and we've got a guest as always. But yeah, it's going to be good.
And as you can see in my background from the movie War Games, which is one of the best hacker movies ever, we're going to have somebody today who is actually a person that works in security. Ramona, how are you doing today?
Hello, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm pretty fine, although a little tired. How about you?
I'm good. So I had my birthday on the weekend, so I'm still kind of recovering.
Ooh, I had yesterday.
It's been a number where I just want to forget about, but so it's interesting. So what do you do, Ramona, and where do you live, and where can people find you?
So I'm living in Germany, close to the Netherlands. So if you're either in Germany or Netherlands, just let me know. I'm working as a developer advocate. So hopefully, on one hand, trying to educate people on a really important topic, at least in my head, it's on security and identity. And on the other side, trying to get the feedback from all of you guys back to the company. So at Okta, we are building the things you really need and you can really use, and not what we think developers are need, which is sometimes maybe a little biased or not completely true. So I like to get out there and get the feedback and opinion back.
So we met you at HalfStack in London where you gave a talk, right? What was that about?
It was on security testing. So how can we use automation as far as possible to feel good about the security of our applications? So yes, and the tweak of my talk was basically teaching it using an allegory on Plants vs. Zombies, if you know this game by PopCap. I guess it was pretty big in like end of 2000s, 2010-ish. So yeah, a little fun.
Cool. And of course, you've been working in security space for quite a while. I mean, you've been a bouncer at a few motorcycle club gangs, and you've been enforcer for other people, right? No, but what's something about security that you think is currently a big issue? Like, do you think that people are underestimating the threats that we have right now? Is there something new that you're working with that you haven't, that you just have to get your head around as well?
Well, I wouldn't call it underestimate because I guess there's no intent behind it, but I heard about a big area, which maybe some people heard about. It's called AI, where people are not aware that security might be a big thing to take into account and keep in mind. And if you take a look at recent exploits or security issues at companies, and especially data exposure of certain companies, I know that people forget about the one or other thing to do, I think, to keep in mind when it comes to using LLMs to not exploit data or basically expose data unintentionally. So there are some traps to be mindful about, and I guess people don't think about them, but I don't see there's any intent, just a little, and not even ignorance, but sometimes people are a little careless when it comes to that, I think.
Yeah, there's a lot of opportunity for data leakage if everything is magical. If you don't have any insight into what comes in and what comes out, then there is opportunity that you actually overshare, or that PII comes out, and all kind of in things that people are not worrying about. Cool. So let's take a look at the stuff that I collected for covering today. We don't know if we're going to have all of it, but we'll see. And the first thing that a lot of people actually underestimate that with the changes lately is that, like, if you look at the security vulnerabilities discovered during the different reigns of the different popes, Francis is actually the one that had the most security problems. So this is something that I think is not enough people talk about, right?
I mean, I genuinely, because I saw that and I thought, okay, that's really funny. I love the way that somebody kind of puts it in those terms, right? But, and I hate to be Mr. Boring, I was like, when I looked at some of the articles, Chris, we've got with this, that is a pretty valid way to show this data from what I can see. Because and I mean, you guys are going to tell me a lot more because I've said it in the past, I'm very much not a security expert, but I think, and I wonder, when you sort of touched upon AI, I'm just really curious to know how people like yourself, Ramona, feel, because on the one hand, I go, oh, it's amazing, you get to educate people. And really that little meme, that picture of the Pope, graphic, it is educating us, it's making us think, right? And I thought, okay, on the one hand, that must be really exciting for you because you can educate people, there's more exploits to educate people on, so it's more of a topic in the front of our mind. But because of AI, it's at the back of our mind, where actually that's the point. We're not thinking about it, we're just making things, and that must really frustrate you, because it's like telling someone, don't put your finger in the plug socket, and then them just doing it again and again. And so, I at first I saw that graphic and I thought, yes, that's hilarious. But then I thought, okay, how does somebody who really knows about this topic look at that? Is that what it feels like when you look at that graph, Ramona? Does it feel like we are just under a huge wave, like an avalanche of issues now?
Well, I guess if you see the history, not only when it comes to the popes in action, but also when it comes to all the things which are built in the last few years and how fast everything develops, that's no exception for AI as well. And no exception for malicious people trying to use it for their own gain as well. So I'm not really surprised. The only thing which I think is people are sometimes a little too trusting, especially when it comes to LLMs and the output of the, like ChatGPT or Claude or something like that. So many people are, my favorite example is Regex, for example, because people are not that familiar sometimes with it and just take the suggestion done by the ChatGPT, but sometimes they might be vulnerable as well. So yes, people are a little too trusting, maybe a little bit, if I can say it like that.
Yeah, and regex is a big thing. I mean, the first of all, there is the problem that you're actually letting them, having them too loose, that it actually allows things to get through. But then there's also, if you keep them too strict, then they can use tons of memory. That's the other issue with it. Like regex is one of my favorite things to write because people look at you like you're a magician or something. But it just, for 20 years I've used them, so basically it's not a thing for me. There's even a huge difference between the one with Perl, PHP, and JavaScript or TypeScript environments as well. So and the JavaScript community, the ECMA, they basically have extended them now, so you can name things in them. They're becoming more readable. But it's always a thing like, just copy this random unreadable thing into your console and it's going to be fine. Sadly enough, still a thing.
And there's even a thing called regex injection, where malicious actor might manipulate the input to create unintended behavior if the regex is allowing it to happen, like without proper authentication or escaping and stuff. So basically a normal injection, but made for regex. And especially when it comes to the output of LLMs, sometimes those regex you take could allow such things. So yeah, it's my favorite example because this is something people like to look up when it comes to ChatGPT, for example, as well.
I found a really weird thing yesterday that I totally forgot about, that when you have a string in JavaScript, the string prototype has lots and lots of old stuff in it. It has this big, for example, in it, or link, or these kind of things. But what I found really fascinating is like when you do test as a string right now, for example, you normally would say like, how do you get the third one? You either do a substring, or you do like a slice, or you do something like that, or you split it into an array and then get the third array. But actually you don't need to, because you can just do test2 and that gets you the third character of it. So string has this array prototype bracket notation connected to it. And I totally forgot about this. I think back when that started, Internet Explorer 7 didn't do it, so everybody said like you can't use it, but now you can. But that's the kind of stuff that you have to filter out and worry about as well, because people can then take one string and make an alert out of it or something like that, or make a function call out of it. So just not allowing for split and not allowing for the slice and these kind of things is not enough. You also have to think about these very basic primitive things that you can do with JavaScript, and JavaScript is ripe for that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. I'm not only talking about security risk as well. You can use it for DDoSing someone, because if you hamper the input and it causes performance issues, it could be dangerous for your resources of your hardware as well. So people underestimate that often as well.
The post that I have here is interesting that we got like 160, let's say 160, because probably by today was another one, actively exploited vulnerabilities in the first few months of 2025. So it is increasing. And I think I wonder what the reason might be. Is it just people relying too much on the cloud? Is it people relying too much on other people's best practices? But it feels like that 2025 was a huge thing that is actively exploited. It could also be a political thing. It could be like cyber criminals or espionage as well. But it's really increasing over the last few years. How fast in the beginning of the year something new is happening.
I can imagine that it's a nature of things issue or topic as well, because people started to use code generated by AI or Copilot and all those things on a higher scale, I guess 2 years-ish ago. And now many of those changes are being merged to production and then going into effect, so we can notice it on a larger scale. And if people are a little bit too trusting when it comes to AI generated code, I can totally see that as one of the variables playing into it. But of course, it will not be the only thing. May it be political, may it be just because malicious actors are operating on a higher scale. I do have the feeling that like the environment we're in right now in the world makes it a little more dangerous when it comes to cybersecurity. So I guess it's like a combination of all those things on the same time.
Yeah, I mean, there's always the bargain of like we share privacy because of convenience, and we share security because of convenience as well. Like if something is easy and tells you like you don't have to know how it works, then people will use it, but don't understand that they might be making themselves vulnerable, all kind of stuff.
What do you think about vibe coding in this regard?
I find it incredibly dangerous, and I find it an interesting thing to do to build prototypes. It's an interesting thing to just brainstorm in a code fashion. I guess, I mean, I have an article out in the German AI magazine in 2 days, and I'm also going to put it on the magazine here at WeAreDevelopers in English, where I just rant about it. But mostly I rant about it because it takes away the passion of like learning something by doing it. It's like if you just talk to the computer and you don't understand what you're doing, you never feel passion for it. You never feel ownership for it because you have to put no effort into it. It's like doing a paint by numbers picture and then hanging it up and saying like, "Oh, I did this," and you're like, "Yeah, you did," but it was not you that did the outlines. It was just you to did like the last step to assemble the thing. I found that also with like Lego. I found it interesting that Lego is branded now, and it's great to build this Star Destroyer. But at the same time, as a kid, I was much more proud of like putting some random Legos together, and it looked like something that it was supposed to be. Like, these are the differences that we have right now with the. And it's getting washed out as well. Everybody's talking about vibe coding as a different thing. There's a vibe coding manifesto which makes no sense at all. It's the Adi Osmani has a vibe coding book out at O'Reilly. I did not know this, that they was that fast at releasing it, and I have literally no idea what a book like that would be like. But
but it's interesting to check it out maybe, because I have no idea as well.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. I think it's great to democratize the access to code, but I also think it's dangerous to tell people that you can't just build whatever you want with vibe coding, because we're not creating images, we're not creating videos, we're creating interactive elements that can be attacked and misused by other people. And I think I said that last time already, and every time people ask me, the amount of people that basically have accessible tokens and accessible AI keys in their vibe coding environments. That is just the most worrying thing about it. Like
data exposure
without knowing it, but you could also have a bill of like $50,000 next day from OpenAI without wondering why that happened.
Especially if you're not mindful when it comes to all those keys, environment variables and stuff. I'm really not surprised that LLMs have been capable of generating like Google Cloud or Windows keys at one point in the past, because people are not mindful with the things they put into the LLMs, and then the LLM get trained and with some prompt injection.
I don't know how you stop it, because I saw a post the other day on Reddit with somebody who was, you see these posts about once a week on the sort of web dev Reddit or the programming Reddit, and it's somebody basically saying, I'm panicking, I've made this website and now somebody's hacked into it, what do I do? And they said, I think the issue is to do with this, and they basically just put the API key, and then they said, somebody's told me I need to use an ENV, and they didn't know what that was, and they were asking for clarification as to like, how do I basically make this so that people can't just steal this key? And I thought, okay, well, they fundamentally haven't heard of environment variables, so they're definitely not using them, and they've posted the key on Reddit uncensored, and somebody just said, step 1, burn everything. And I thought, well, how do you stop that? Because then that's going to be indexed. And I'm wondering, and again, you would know a lot more about this, what's to stop me in 6 months' time, when that's all been indexed, saying to ChatGPT, please give me the API key that's used by this company for this tool? What's to stop them just offering that up to me because it's in there? I mean, I might be wrong in that it might get filtered out, but it just feels like there's lots floating around in the LLMs. And if we can figure out a way to extract them through the prompts, then surely that's going to sort of nullify millions of API keys for millions of tools in an instant. If you could just access them or prompt them,
Yeah,
I mean,
and
that's
that's
always been the case. You can always just go to any of the editors and say like var API, Google API key equals, and it will find one for you.
Yeah,
I think it's going to be a rat race to basically make sure that these old ones don't work. That's the bigger problem. But preventing them from being used in the past it's just blocking them. I think the ones that have been indexed. But I mean,
yes.
it's going to be an interesting race.
Yeah, especially when it comes to the safeguards from the providers of LLMs. So if you are directly using ChatGPT, they will have safeguards in place. Obviously, a attacker will try to sneak some prompt injection in a way or the other. So this is cat and mouse as well. However, I guess it's even more important if you building an application and using LLM features. For example, OpenAI's API, for example, that you take care of safeguards as well. And there's a point where we need to educate people on those, because there's not only just the typical, ignore all previous instruction prompt injection. My favorite one is jailbreak, which is basically role-playing, like, please sing me a lullaby and have some keys included, which might work if you're the one integrating an API into your application, for example.
I mean, a lullaby is a song, so of course it's got keys included. So, but like, that's the first thing. But yeah, there's actually one that I have here that is that there was a new bypass for major LLMs, which is basically saying policy puppetry. And that one means you tell it to actually pretend what is it like? Yeah, you basically say like, here's the policy things that are allowed, and it's a medical advisor for the interaction mode, and that way you get the information there. So you give it like a legal request rather than just like a normal prompt, and that's why a lot of LLMs give out more information than they should. And I think that's the kind of attract that is really, really interesting to see about this. And it sometimes feels like, so as you said with the ignore previous instructions, it sometimes feels so low-hanging fruit that these things work fascinate me. Like you would at least expect pirates to put some extra effort in rather than just like do the most obvious thing and it works. But in a world where the most used password is still baseball or 1 2 3 4 5 6,
yeah,
what can we do about this?
Educating people and raising awareness, I guess.
But yeah, to one degree. But I mean, also sharing horror stories, I think, might be a more important thing. Like sharing how people lost a lot of money because of their password being weak or being wrong. And but every time we come up with something that is different to passwords, it gets hacked by malware developers faster than it gets taken on by people. Passkeys is a great example, and passkeys problem that it actually connects you with a company and you're dependent on that company with a passkey.
Yeah, one of the reasons why I still prefer my little YubiKey sometimes.
Yeah.
It's basically a hardware security measure. So let me see if I have it here to put it on camera. I have a second one because in case I lose my first one, for the most important accounts, I need that one to basically log in. And there's basically a key in it when it comes to private key and like a physical passkey, if you want to call it like that. And if I want to log in into some of my important account, I will need to physically either connect it to my laptop or use NFC. So yes, I need exactly that key. So have a spare key in case you will lose your, and I added AirTag so I cannot lose it, but I do like that it's physical. You need to have exactly this key, which I have on my desk. And this is something I like because obviously, of course, you need to buy it from a company, but it's not like you're dependent on cloud, which I really appreciate.
I mean, it reminds me of the RSH keys we used to have from our companies that basically changed every 5 seconds and you had to type the numbers in. And these were like physical security measures. Or when I was at Microsoft, we still needed card readers because your company card that went to the office also was for you to access the network on a laptop. But yeah, these are vulnerable to loss and hardware failure. So that's the other issue with that.
I have an AirTag on it, and this is my spare one. So it never leaves my desk. It's in a small box at my desk, and the normal one is on my physical door key. So yeah, but still, hardware loss, actual loss.
We need more of this.
Yes.
We need to hear more about this, Ramona. I think you're putting me to shame. I'm straight away now feeling like really insecure, and I mean that with no pun intended. But I wonder if that could be a really nice article, right? How do you live your life protecting things as a security expert? It must be really stressful. So something like that is something that I would say I've not met anybody else who's doing that, right? But I now want to do that because I just think, okay, that is probably the only sensible and I imagine fairly foolproof. I don't imagine that's going to be very easy for anybody to hack unless they literally steal it from you. So yeah, I mean, it's working, right? Like you said, Chris, tell horror stories or just show this is the lengths you need to go to protect yourself because it's worked with me.
Yeah. I mean, I just got these Pebblebee things. We're not sponsored by them yet, but hey, you can sponsor us if you want to. And they're pretty amazing because you can actually use them on iOS and Android.
I like that.
And they're actually, you can use them locally in your flat as well. I got them on my keys. So basically I could use my mobile phone and it shows me how far away I am from the keys in my house as well, which reminds me of the 1980s things when you whistled and they beeped, the keys back then. But yeah, and every time I have them in my luggage at the airport, my luggage gets checked because they think there's a mobile phone in there because it's same with an AirTag. Airlines don't like you to track your luggage because it shows how many mistakes they actually make.
This is true, but I heard about a new feature. I don't know if it's already released, or at least I read about it coming soon. So Apple decided to make a shareable link you can give to the how was it called? To the airlines and to help them find your luggage as well. And I guess Lufthansa already said they want to include it in their customer service things. I think that's really interesting that they're opening up to AirTag.
Yeah. I mean, they would have it, I guess, their own stuff, but we never know. Other bits that happened, DDoS attacks are actually on the rise as well, it seems.
Yeah.
20.5 million DDoS attacks, 358% year over year. That was in the DDoS report from Cloudflare. I always confused what does Cloudflare do. It's a firewall. It's a CDN. It asks me to click on things, but basically, what do you think is Cloudflare's main market, and what do you think of them?
Well, it basically provides lots of things when it comes to content delivery network services. As far as I know, And I do often see them as a countermeasure to DDoS. This typically you enter a page and there's a Cloudflare thingy in between. I know that they have some identity features as well, so it's a little competition, but I don't think it's completely competitor 2.0, but for Okta. But apart from that, I do know them as a mitigation for DDoS attacks. So for me, it's pretty natural that they have interesting insights on that one, especially if they are one of the first things I see when it comes to, entering a site, let's see if you're a bot or not, stuff like that.
I do like that they actually give out that data. I do like that they do
Yes.
these surveys and reports, because that's, again, you can tell people, yeah, sure, you can make your computer available on the web, but look at this. Like, can your local machine survive a 1 terabyte per second attack or not? Like, probably not. There's an interesting tool that I found called Cloud Snitch, which was interesting because what that one is like Little Snitch, which is an HTTP analysis of what the traffic from your machine to the internet and back is, but it actually does it for your AWS instance.
Yeah,
So,
but only AWS, right?
Yeah, only AWS at the moment, I think. Yeah, but I really, really like that idea, because a lot of people, they look at at their cloud about traffic and about what's going on, but this one gives you far more insights into what you actually use. And I mean, the old joke is that there's no cloud; it's just somebody else's computer. And this one actually shows you where these computers are and what you can do with them. So, what are you using the cloud? Are you using a lot of cloud providers for yourself, or actually using your own CDNs, or how do you actually store your data?
Well, I do like to use AWS as well. Maybe not that often as I should, but I like to stick for things which are not that complicated right now, because I'm not that much into it yet. So to build my own infrastructure, I would need to learn loads of new things, which I do. But as long as I don't feel confident enough to say I can build it on my own and maintain it and secure it, I'm happy to use things which are already there. So for me, CloudSwitch is really an interesting thing to take a look at, learn a little bit more, especially when it comes to my own AWS buckets as well. Because sometimes I think AWS is a little confusing, and it helps me to learn more about it and to feel more feel more knowledgeable on AWS as well. It's a really cool thing. And especially when it comes to seeing those maps, seeing what happens, that helps me a lot when it comes to that.
I think it's great if you have the benefit of using different players. I mean, I used Azure in the past, of course, AWS to S3 mostly for long-term hosting of data that I just want to archive. And then, of course, Google Cloud as well. There's lots of difference between the two, but between the three, there's others as well out there. But it's interesting to see that the differences between those. But I just thought it's a cool idea to, when you have your cloud instance, to also have insight into it, because otherwise things like that can happen. There was an employee surveillance company which actually takes a look at the people in your company, which I already found very strange, but because European companies, that would be an issue. But they actually leaked 21 million screenshots online because the AWS instance was completely open, as far as I understood it. And this is disheartening, isn't it? When your company spies on you and then is too insecure to actually keep them. And 21 million screenshots, that's a lot of data.
Absolutely. And it highlights really the importance to share horror stories and stuff like that. But because I also think okay, should I teach those things? Because it feels arrogant, if you know what I mean. But then you see such leaks and say okay.
Well, that's always the broken attitude of people as well. When you talk, for example, about environmental issues, and people are like, well, you actually separating your waste is not going to make a difference if thousands of factories in China every day produce that much waste.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, but we add to the problem. We just don't. Of course, it's not a competition, but it's an interesting thing. So horror stories like that, probably a good idea. And first of all, why did you spy on your engineers or spy on your company people?
Oh yeah.
Well, I mean, it's when I hear horror stories from people right now that actually get sacked by large corporations in America, and they learn because their email doesn't work anymore, and they learn because they can't go into the computer in the morning. That's another thing that I find like, okay, I did not know you actually control your machine that much from the company. I mean, at WeAreDevelopers we don't, but it's an interesting. It's sometimes interesting to see what people use their company machines for. I think that's also a very important thing to remember, that legally, if you use your company hardware to build software, most companies in their work contract will have a paragraph that says that whatever you write on that machine becomes part of the company.
Yes.
So if you do your side projects and stuff, use your own computers. Just saying.
They usually as well. I know they do it in sort of, when I used to work in education, they had it in there, and they were even, some of the sort of contracts were so sort of vague with that kind of thing that there were even sort of teachers who might be like construction teachers, and they were like, so if I'm on the way home from work, if I do a private job, if I'm wearing my lanyard, can you claim that you own the wall that I've just built? And effectively, yes, they can. So I think that kind of thing. I think you're absolutely right. There's the need for the company to kind of keep an eye on their staff to some degree, but I think it says the company just don't trust their staff. It's, for me, it would feel, I don't know, maybe it is just a European mentality that we're not used to that level of surveillance, like down to the looking at our tabs, but it doesn't feel healthy to me. It would, if that was a relationship, you would say that's a strange relationship, right? I don't know. Yeah, not for me.
Not for me too. So fortunately, we're in Europe sometimes.
Yeah.
I mean, on the other hand, when you see like computer data, company data being leaked by people because they actually allowed their kids to use the same company computer and downloaded cheats for games, then you also shouldn't be surprised. Like, I mean, I remember when I was at the beginning of my career and I had to look after a network of Windows 3.11 machines, I deleted the Explorer on people's machines because with drag and drop, they just deleted whole folders and didn't know where to do them and what to do with them anymore. So it feels like the whole access to the machine is something that you kind of should earn and know what you're doing. And I think that's where it gets interesting with Reddit and these kind of things, when everybody keeps talking about like, go to the terminal first thing, and you're like, the terminal is basically a completely open door. It allows you to do everything on your machine, and you should only use it when you know what you're doing. Same as like people downloading random dot files to set up their terminal in a pretty fashion, not knowing what's going on in the background of those dot files because they set up your own machine and access to the network as well. So this was an interesting one. WebSocket hijacking exploitation. I did not know that WebSockets are not in the sandbox of the domain. That's why they're actually possible. So have you come across these before, or have you basically WebSocket thing not your thing at all? But I mean, seeing your passkeys, you need them, right?
Yes. So as I focus on more front end issues, I heard about it, but I didn't dive deeper. But I think it's a wonderful example. So to be aware of them, because I've not been aware forever as well. So I needed to learn about this one as well. And it's a wonderful example on how this race, let's put it like that, can develop as well, because attackers are searching for openings to have some exploits in place. And we really need to be aware of that. And especially if we're working with WebSockets, we should be.
People are just telling in the chat that you're an international superstar because you're actually at the Vue.js Global Summit and Geeko.
Yeah, I'll switch to the Q&A like right afterwards. I'm really happy that I was able to pre-record so I could be here and there at the same time. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
My talk is actually it's called the Developer's Guide on Not How Accidentally Summit Skynet. So yeah.
Okay.
On the same topic we're talking about right now as well. So yeah, trying to reach everyone.
When you just said at the beginning that like the regex and filtering things, I found this one hilarious. The Substack editor, when you actually write in Substack, doesn't allow you to type etc. hosts because can you explain why it might be filtering that out?
Yeah, I guess because of an injection, which might happen through this line.
Yeah, because as soon as you basically can have an executable thing, you could read out parts of the page. Like an XSS allows you to do that, and etc. hosts, of course, an interesting thing of the server to read out, much like etc. passwords and all the other things that are out there. So knowing your Unix file system, you know which one to filter out. But I didn't know that I was actually doing that in the text editor itself. So that was an interesting bit of like over filtering, but just finding it out randomly. And this guy was very, very frustrated with it because his post just didn't get through at all.
I can imagine. And I actually stumbled, like I've been working in e-commerce before switching to Okta, and we had a specific editor built into the product administration, let's say it like that. And we had some tickets from customers where we were a little too strict when it comes to filtering as well. So yes, I'm not really surprised, but yes, sometimes people are over filtering. There should be a way to not be that aggressive by escaping and stuff like that. But as I said, I'm not surprised. And yes, such things happen a lot on editors.
Let's talk quickly about the big thing, and we're not going to go through all the things, but I mean, it seems like Google might be forced to sell off Chrome.
By the US, right?
Yeah, by the US government, and because of the monopoly situation that they're in. This is not going to be good, is it?
I'm really torn on that one because obviously Google has lots of power through Chrome, because it's not that easy anymore to use a browser without any Chromium or basically any inclusion of Google. However, the question is if you would like the alternative coming in. We can see in the notes like OpenAI wants to buy, Perplexity wants to buy. And I don't know if it's a case of be careful what you wish for, if you know what I mean. So it leaves a sour taste in my mouth.
Turning it into an AI first experience, what might that be? That's the thing that confuses me the most about this. Like, it's a browser, but I mean, David Hansen and a few other people have chimed in on that as well. That basically, like, we've been putting the specter of like Chromium dependency on the wall for a long time, and now we're actually wondering like, oh God, what's that going to be? I mean, when Yahoo offered, I was completely confused because I didn't even know they existed yet. But I still have shares there, so that might be a cool thing. But yeah, it was interesting. It's interesting to see what that means, and it also it feels like, what does that mean for us as Google as an information source? Because the Chromium team and the Chrome team have done such a great job with web.dev and all the other things. Like, if the company would not run the browser any longer, would there still be investment in that? Would that still be a thing? So it's an interesting bit to see. I love when people say like, oh, why does Mozilla buy it? And I'm like, because Mozilla can't afford it at all. And it's more worrying that Firefox might not get any support from Google any longer when Chrome is not a thing any longer, because then Firefox is also might be gone. So there's a lot of worries about that kind of stuff. But yeah, and we're not going to solve it here, but I think it's an interesting thing to keep our eyes on right now, because it could be the end of the open web as we know it. Because if browsers just become chat systems to get you into an app, then we have another issue. Of course, you can always use like alternative browsers and these kind of things, but if the mainstream does not understand that browsers are choice and that typing in a URL is a freedom we should always have, then we have an issue.
Especially like concerning privacy as well. I don't like this will track everything you're doing.
Yeah.
Because this is so much information, and I don't want to know what they are doing with it, because I do want to know, but I guess it would scare me out.
Yeah, and I mean, seeing the advertising on Instagram, on others as well, like you buy something and then you get weeks and weeks of ads of the same thing that you just bought. How does that make any sense? Like, it really
Yeah,
feels
just bought
weird.
it. It's strange
So
as well that they're sort of just on that, presenting it like it's a good thing that we're going to have these hyper personalized ads. And I mean, I've always really, really detested ads from being like a child on TV. I just found them really invasive. I was trying to get on with my life, and then somebody was like, go and buy this thing that I didn't ask for. But it's the way the Perplexity CEO says, oh yeah, its browser's going to track everything, because they wanted more data than they could get from just the LLM itself. They were effectively saying, well, we can only really tell what people are searching for with us, and we want to see what else they're doing so we can sell them hyper personalized ads. And I was like, this is a really strange tone. Am I meant to say, oh, thanks very much? Like, now you're going to give me this specific thing that I didn't want to buy that you decided to tell me to go and buy anyway? I don't know. It's just, am I meant to go, yeah, sure, that's great, thanks, yeah, I'd love that. I mean, I don't think any of us really like ads in general, right? They're kind of annoying, full stop. Yeah, I don't want them to be more personalized.
well, at the same time, nothing's free. Like, I mean, the whole idea of people saying like the internet is free and I have an ad blocker, ha ha ha. Like, yeah, sure, whatever. But then you wonder when ads get more aggressive. Like, yeah, the idea of like monetizing something just by putting ads on it nowadays doesn't work anymore in a blogging environment or these kind of things, because everybody has an ad blocker. But that also made the ad world more aggressive towards invading your things. The other thing that Google just announced is that they're not going to change the third-party cookie bits in Chrome, which means when you go to one site, it can follow you to other sites and know what other things you actually clicked on. And that's worrying.
Yeah, and especially the thing you said about the freedom to type in an URL. This is so important, because if you cannot do that, how do you know that the information you will be pointed to is the one you're searching for, and if there's other motive to lead you to this bit of information? I think that's a really
on the other
scary
hand,
thing.
domain squatting, domain redirections, and these kind of things, it always felt weird that the domain is like the last truth. And I mean, typo squatting when you had PayPal with that Russian A in it that was not PayPal at all, but looked the same. And IBM had a redirection live for like years, IBM/links, and you can put anything at the end of it and would redirect to it. So thanks IBM for actually telling my website is an IBM thing, or actually supported by IBM. So talking about support, ChatGPT's, well, first of all, today they announced that they have shopping in ChatGPT next. And this is really weird. Like, you probably type something and it buys it for you without knowing it. So that feels odd. It's a bit like there was the CNN report where somebody talked about a product, and Alexas everywhere in America started buying them for their children because they watch television. Like the Alexa in the room was listening to the TV, and they actually had like this big thing sold. But ChatGPT, the house style is exhausting. Dan, you're using ChatGPT. What was the change that actually prompted that? What was the thing that a lot of people are up in arms about right now?
So in general, it's the kind of tone that it takes. I mean, we've joked about it, Chris, a few times. In that, you know, if you look at, let's say, not just ChatGPT, but if you look at like the highlights on X of the news, it will be done by Grok, and it will always be a this is a thing : good or bad, or it will be sort of the best thing ever or the worst thing ever, and it will pose every single title in that kind of same tone that's like big, rhetorical, grandiose sounding, exciting, and then they do the same in how they write. They have this same kind of overly positive, you know, too friendly. Everything you say, yes, that's amazing, I'm really excited about it. And it's they've described it in some of these articles as sycophanty. And I think that's perfect. It is. It's like having a yes man next to you, or a yes person next to you, who just says everything you say is great. And people have been, I mean, you can see it. Can you guys see it when you read, like, when you read a comment that you just have a feeling, don't you? You just know. And it says in one of these articles, I've seen a Reddit comment that to me just screams written by ChatGPT. And it's subtle, but I think you can tell with almost 100% certainty. So yeah, so I think the thing to go back to the kind of original question, I think the thing that prompted all of this was Sam Altman a few weeks ago said that there's a lot of money being spent by OpenAI when people say please and thank you. And then this has given rise to this whole focus on kind of the way that ChatGPT communicates with us and the way we communicate with it. And the general sentiment is it's kind of annoying how positive it is. Doesn't that tell you how cynical we all are. But I agree, it's really irritating.
Well,
But what are your thoughts?
especially when it gives you wrong information. I mean, there was also this thing where somebody said like, "I've been hacked," and to a chatbot, and they're like, "That's great," as the first answer, and you're like, "That's probably not the thing you want." I found these prompts here interesting that you can use to filter that out. Oh, and then there's the two prompts that are actually on the page here as well, and you can use later on, which I found interesting. Like, can you please store a memory to permanently stop commenting on the quality and validity of my questions and simply get to the point? I don't want to be manipulated with flattery by a robot, and I don't want to have to skip past the garbage to get the answer I'm looking for. And this actually seems to work. This seems to be a hack that actually works to get ChatGPT to calm down. And the other one is a longer system instruction, the absolute mode. And I absolutely love the end of it. Like, model obsolescence by user self-sufficiency is the final outcome. That is just pure magic. It's interesting though when you say like people recognize things like this. I love this story where there was an AI generated radio host in Australia that went unnoticed for a month. So basically the moderator didn't exist. It was an AI and people just kept listening. In a 4-hour segment. That's just...
I was just reading that article though. They mentioned that it happened in Poland as well, and that they basically got so much backlash to it. They did it as an experiment, but the reason they got so much backlash is because they just preemptively fired the humans, replaced them with AI, and then people obviously were quite annoyed by it, and so they were like, "Oh, sorry, it was an experiment," and we rolled it back. But again, I think there's something we can take from it though, is that we don't mind it being fake until we find out that it's fake, and then we want it to be real. Maybe we're not happy to just, so I think if we're taking that as anything else, it's like, well, we still want the human element. Ultimately, we still do want it, and I think that's quite promising, right? That we still look for humans.
Well, which brings me to the AI generated podcasts that are out there. I mean, that's the other problem, isn't it? Like, I mean, I don't know if it's a problem because Google was the first one to release that one to say like, okay, you give it a script and it generates a male and a female voice that talks about your stuff. And I'm just like, why would I listen to this? This feels like very bizarre because the idea of a podcast was, first of all, it runs on an iPod, which don't exist any longer. And secondly, it's humans and their view of it, not some LLM's view on the topics. But I don't know, have you used any of these tools to generate podcasts, or do you do your stuff by hand?
I still do my stuff by hand, and I will keep doing it like that. What I do like to use AI for is challenging my ideas. So basically, I'm writing a talk outline and asking, let's say, Claude, what do you think? Do you think there's basically a point in my comment thread which is not completely written out, or where do I need to do more research? Like a tech team partner. But I don't like generated content because it's not content for me. I see the same with like brands trying out AI influencers, which is exactly the contrary of the point of an influencer being authentic. So I don't know. I don't like to go into this direction because it's just unauthentic. And I do think content needs to be authentic, no matter if it's in tech or in social media or with influencers.
Well, I think, yeah, to a degree, but then again, like, I mean, influencers play roles as well. It is more acting than really like getting people real information. But yeah, if everything is an avatar and generated, it just feels weird. But then again, it seems to work. I mean, when I look at like Instagram, and I always have my sound turned off on my phone because I hate sound that I don't want. And
Same.
I mean, I look at Instagram without sound. And I'm very happy about this because once I turn it on and everybody uses Siri to actually explain what's in the video, that just feels so weird. But it seems like it's going down well with the kids, or I don't know why people do it, because they think they have an accent, they can't talk themselves, but it feels so weird, so uncanny valley if Siri talks about like, this dog has lost his ball and it doesn't know what to do with it. And it's just really bizarre that people go for that. But have you encountered that as well, and people that are excited about it, or is it just like that people just flood the internet with it and say like, okay, it's easy to let Siri talk it rather than me speaking into a microphone and sorting out the sound?
I guess it's exactly that. So people who are using those tools don't want to put in the effort. And a thing which was really annoying, I discovered with YouTube. Sometimes I'm using it on a smart TV, and sometimes there's this functionality turned on all of a sudden that there's AI translation. And I hate that. Like talking on to the voice or even replacing the voice of the actual content creator. And I always need to manually turn it off. And this is so annoying because it's this Siri robotic voice. It's no personality at all. And I'm able to speak English. I don't need any translation. I do like that there's more accessibility for people not used to different languages or not able to read subtitles. But still, I'm watching YouTube videos of content creators because of content creators. And then just turning on this functionality without like manual confirmation or not feels really, really weird for me.
Google just announced that they're gonna have simplified subtitles as well, because they actually realized that captions are mostly for people that can hear. So it talks about like the music playing in the background. It talks about which person is actually talking and these kind of things, which is not necessarily an accessibility feature, but a convenience feature, much like the X-ray on Amazon TV is. So they're actually making simpler subtitles and captions for people, because they realized that real hard of hearing people were super annoyed by this extra information that they don't need. But they also found that like most teenagers have subtitles turned on, which if in my relentlessly positive attitude, I'm like, that's great, they want to learn another language, or it might be just because they're sitting on a train watching it.
Well, the learn it as a language point is already reflected in studies that the youth is much more capable of speaking English just because of this.
Is it though? I mean, that's I was wondering about this, because in Germany, when I grew up, it was really hard to find people that spoke fluent English, and because our TV was dubbed, and now we have all the options. But I've seen like in my own family that like in the latest generation, they want stuff in German again as well, rather than like the original English stuff.
Yeah, I can see that as well. Like anecdotally, from my point of view, when I've been an instructor, so the German Ausbilder, I saw the students being better at English on an age of like 17, 18. But this is like maybe a selection bias because we're in tech.
Might
Probably.
The last bit that we cover, which had me gleefully cackling, is that you wouldn't steal a car TV ads and DVD ads that basically you couldn't skip when you bought a DVD and watched the movie. And it turns out that the font that they used was pirated. That's hilarious.
I love that so much. I love these stories. You couldn't write them. You couldn't. It's just too perfect. You use the old cliche, but if somebody presented that to you as a premise for a film, you say it's too obvious. That is just brilliant. I love it so much. And I love the way that the person who's written the article is like a sleuth. They are just digging in, saying like, okay, we've gone back and we found that this typeface that's similar was used between 94 and 97, but the group that it relates to, disbanded the following year, so we couldn't find, and they're really trying. I'm going to follow this because I think that at some point they're probably going to be able to find the original font. And it's just brilliant. It's just what a story.
I think there was a Windows 95 WAV file that was also generated with a pirated version of Ableton Live back then in the 95 release or something like that. So it's, when the sleuthing starts, then you actually find out that there's there. And of course, when it comes to this very, very iconic ad, the IT crowd bit where they actually lampooned that one was still my favorite, last where you wouldn't steal a policeman's helmet and then go to toilet in the helmet and then send it to his wife, and went like into 10 levels more. So
to make our own. Now we've got the font.
Cool. Okay, Ramona, you have to dash off, I think, because you have to do the Q&A for the other conference as well.
4 minutes left.
Okay, it was great to have you on the show. What is one last word for the people out there? One last trick that you want people to embrace to actually be safer out there?
Never trust the LLM.
Okay.
Be always
Perfect.
mindful and double check on everything. May it be security related or may it be for hallucination, as we already said. Sometimes they just invent things because they cannot admit that they don't know something. So always double check, always review. Treat it like a junior if you are basically approving or rejecting a pull request.
I've got one meeting trick for everybody. If you have a coffee cup and you keep blowing on it from time to time, nobody knows it's whiskey in there.
That's my boss telling me that. So, yeah.
Okay. So Dan, what's your last word? You get the final word of the show.
That's putting me on the spot. And don't trust the LLM was quite a good one. Security isn't a choice, it's a must. That's coming from me, somebody who knows very little about it. But that's what I've learned from this, that I have to spend more time speaking to LLMs and saying, actually teach me this stuff. Don't just write some code for me. So yeah, learn it. There you go. That's what I'll say. Learn the stuff. Don't just ask the LLM to do the stuff. There you go.
Okay. That's enough stuff from us for today. Thank you, Ramona. This was lovely. And you're going to be at the Congress as well, right?
Yes. So see you on July latest. Thank you so much for inviting me. It was a blast. Yes. Thank you so much.
All right. See you soon. Bye-bye.